In our home, we have a conversation that bubbles up periodically. It's like, can we go get donuts this morning before school? And on certain days, we actually do go get donuts before school. I'm sure the teachers love us for that. But sometimes when we're on our way to the donut store, one of my children will say, "Could I have 2 donuts today?" And the first time I was asked that, I thought, this is a new thing. And I said, "Well, why? Are you really hungry?" And he said, "No, but if I bring a donut to so-and-so, they'll be my friend." And I was like, no, we're not bringing donuts to buy friends. And that whole dance of friendship is something, isn't it? You know, when you're younger, you can be best friends at 8 o'clock, no longer friends at 9, best friends at 10, no longer friends at noon. You know the dance, right? And even as we grow up as adults, we can be best friends. We can choose people to be our maid of honor or our best man, to stand by us at our wedding. We can choose people to share our most intimate thoughts with, our almost, deepest friendships with. And then all of a sudden something happens and we never see them anymore. Doesn't that happen in relationships? I mean, sometimes you're able to hold on tight to those friendships and relationships, but sometimes, and more often the case, they kind of just dissipate, don't they? They kind of become fickle. You might never know what it was of why all of a sudden 10 years ago we stopped going out to dinner periodically with one another and stopped talking to one another over the phone. It just kind of happens. It's fickle friendships. It's not the friendships that sustain forever, that walk through everything together. And that's kind of what I saw happening in the text for this week for Palm Sunday. Now, if you were to hear the whole lectionary text for today, we could just have the whole service where we read the whole text, and we'd probably be an hour and a half long in worship. Without any songs, without any anthems, without any announcements, it would be about that long in just reading the text. And the text goes from the blessing of the palms to the entrance of the processional city to Jerusalem, to the breaking of the bread on Maundy, Thursday, to the betrayal and desertion of Christ from his friends and his disciples, to the trial, to the trip to Golgotha. That's what the text is for today. And when you look at the whole text for today, you go, why are we singing Hosanna? This is kind of sad stuff. Well, the interesting thing about this procession into Jerusalem was everybody was looking for the Messiah to come. And it was the time of Passover. It was the time of the Feast of the Passover. And so people were, people were coming from all over the world to Jerusalem to have Passover in Jerusalem, the holy city. And Marcus Borg and John Dominic Crossan, and they are scholars who are part of the Jesus movement or Jesus Society. They're people who have historically looked at everything to say, this is true to the historical Jesus. There was a Jesus who physically walked this earth, and these are the things that we can point to. What they bring up in a book called The Last Week is that there was probably another procession into Jerusalem about the same time that Jesus was coming into Jerusalem. But it was the procession of the Emperor Pontius Pilate. Now, don't you know that procession looked a little bit different than that of Jesus? That processional had massive chariots and horses that were decked out with jewels and wonderful things, and everybody was radiant in glorious clothes. There might not have been palm branches. There might have been gold coins. You know, we're talking major parade, sponsor floats. You know what I'm saying? We're talking VP Fair, St. Patrick's Day Fair, Veterans Day Parade, all of them combined into one major parade. You get my drift? And that was probably happening at the same time that Jesus was making his entrance into Jerusalem. Now, if you're expecting a king to ride in to claim the throne, you're expecting more of the parade that the emperor had, right? Because the king is going to show his power, going to show the might, going to show the affluence, the opulence, the good life. And what do we have? Jesus coming in. He's riding on a colt. Now, I wasn't aware of the significance of this colt idea until this week because I know nothing about horses and donkeys. I'm sorry, I didn't get that training in seminary. We didn't cover horses and donkeys. But what I found out this week is the fact that this was a colt is significant because the colt had never been ridden before. Now, again, I know nothing about horses or donkeys, but in the TV shows that I've seen, when you start to get a horse ready to ride, the first time you put a saddle or anything on its back, you know what? It's not going, oh, this is so wonderful, do it more, like a cat when you scratch its back, or a dog. You know what it does? It does not like it, right? It kind of jumps up and down and moves all around, right? And so here is Jesus choosing to get on something that more than likely should knock him off. Well, if we were another place, I'd say on an area of his anatomy that wouldn't be too comfortable, right? And yet, he gets on this colt. Not a mighty horse, not decked out with armor, not with chariots, a simple colt that no one's ever ridden before. And oddly enough, there's no evidence in the text about it bucking him off, is there? He rides. And he rides through the city, and people begin to yell, Hosanna. They begin to pick up palms and wave them. They begin to take their garments down to make a royal red carpet for him, although it wasn't royal and it wasn't red, but it was a carpet for the king to ride in. These were not the people who were the VIPs in the country coming to see the emperor. These were the poor, the outcast, the ones society had no place for. And they were the ones standing, yelling, Hosanna! Which means, save us. Redeem us. Save us. Redeem us. Now, in their mind, they had seen where this whole entrance is right after the miracle of Jesus bringing Lazarus back from the dead. They've heard about this fact, that there was this dead man, he'd been in the cave, in the tomb for 4 days, and Jesus rolled away the stone, had him roll away the stone, and he came out alive. So these poor people, what do you think they thought when they saw that Jesus riding in the colt? They went, ooh, I can get a miracle too. Hosanna, save me, I need a miracle. Hosanna, be my king. Kick out the mean old emperor. Hosanna, rule us. Give us freedom. Release us from oppression. Save us. And he makes his way into Jerusalem. And it's late at night. And they leave. He doesn't ride his colt up into the palace, knock the wrong country, emperor, off the throne and say, "This is mine, you're out of here." They go home. Not to palaces, but to borrowed spaces. And it's not what they wanted. It's not what they expected. It wasn't what they hoped for. The week continues, and they share a meal together. And in the course of the time of the meal, it's revealed that Jesus has been betrayed for some silver, and he's going to be captured. Doesn't that sound like a fickle friend? And as he's sharing a meal with them, they argue, "Don't wash my feet." And then they go out to the garden, and Jesus invites them to pray. And you know what happens? You know what happens, right? They had the most amazing revival prayer service. They were up. They were shouting. It lasted until all hours of the night. They were into the Spirit praying so hard. Right? No. Several times Jesus would come to him and say, "Couldn't you just stay up with me and pray with me? This is a really important time in my life. I really need your support. I really need your partnership with me. I really need you to stay up and pray with me. Could you do that?" Oh yes, Jesus, we will. Kind of fickle, right? And then he's taken off by the guards. And Peter's hanging out. And somebody says, "Oh, you're with that rabbi guy." And he's like, "Oh, no, not me. No, you're like with him. No, not me." Is this sounding fickle? He does it 3 times. And then the cock crows. And then you know what happens on Friday, right? He's taken and he's hung on a cross. And of course, all the people that he fed on the hill, the 5,000, they were there. All the people that he brought eyesight to and healed the legs and raised from the dead, they were there at the cross, right? No. Who was at the cross? His mom. It's kind of a thing. Mary Magdalene, John, not even all the 12. And at that moment, when he would have every right to say, "God, we were totally wrong about these people. God, take your revenge." At that very moment, he said, "Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. Forgive them." My friends, we've all experienced